exhaust, please. Please be wrong. The FKF statute, this piece of the Constitution, cannot override a statute of Parliament. It is as simple as that. So what applies is what is in the Sports Act, not what you've written in your law. Even just basic laws of contract, you must contract within the parameters of the law. So what applies is what is in the statute. So what is in the statute is that there are 2 term limits. So to that extent,
The Act.
yes, what is it? The Act, yes, the Sports Act. That the limitation of term, of tenure to 2 terms, is what applies. And this particular constitution is to that extent deemed to have been amended by the statute. So, Mwendwa already served 2 terms. Don't escape that there's a court order. As an election board, how did you pre-qualify him to be eligible? That's what you should tell us. Because it's not.
I will give the secretary, but before that, I think as a board, we are limited to operate within the FKF elections.
Within the law.
Yes, yes. Now, let me just finish. Within the law. It is not within our doorstep to interpret that law. And that is why I'm saying we respect the interpretation of the law as it should apply. And once that is given to us, we will have no objection. But within the mandate that we were given, I don't think we were given that responsibility to start interpreting that.
Let me ask you.
Mheshimiwa Dr. Boda, we had Mheshimiwa CNN.
Yes.
Chair, I just want to seek clarification. The FKF and the FIFA statutes seem to agree. They agree. Which one is more superior? Is it the Sports Act of 2013 or the FIFA/FKF Act?
I want to hand over to the CEO first. Then we come back to you.
Right. I'd just like to contribute to that matter. And I think, just to be very clear, of the 9 candidates who are passed, none has come back for a 3rd term. And I think it's in conformity to the FKF constitution. And rightfully, as Hesbon, or Willows, the chair of the board, mentioned, Article 37F is very clear, and it says all members will be eligible to serve for a maximum of 2 terms. I think that's very clear. Thereafter, one is free to seek election in a different position as it shall count as a new term of office on its own right. Now, Nick Mwendwa has served 2 terms. We all agree to that. However, he has not come back for that term as a president. He has come back as a running mate. And it's a whole new position as per the constitution. Now, there's a question about FIFA statutes and FKF statutes. FKF statutes aligns to the FIFA statutes. However, we are of course guided by a number of constitutions when it comes to elections. Of course, the FKF constitution, there's the electoral code, as well as the Sports Act. And I think if we look at the list of the candidatures, of the candidates, is that none has gone for that term. So we are within what the Sports Act says, and we are within what the FKF constitution says. However, Article 43 that has been mentioned talks about a possibility of someone doing 4 terms. But I think when you look at the list of the candidates that we have, we do not have anyone who is going beyond the Sports Act and who is going beyond Article 37F. I think that's why I want to make it very clear.
Sure. To your explanation. Let's imagine a situation where a running mate has finished his term as the president of the organization becomes the running mate, and for one reason or another, the president resigns. What does the law, FKF, say? Is the vice chair or the vice president takes over automatically? Would that be now the fourth or the third? Do you imagine a situation like that? And because that is the apex of that particular. And when we listen to the presentation given by overall, we hear like the federation is closer to laws outside the international treaty more than our own constitution. They seem to be desirous to be independent of our constitution and be subjective. You hear the tone,
Yes.
and that you are almost saying you become partisan if you are following the Kenyan constitution. You become neutral if you follow the FIBA. And are you not creating a room for cartels so that people would be acting on behalf of FIBA and take advantage of that particular cliche of seeking independence to manipulate election at home?
Chair, I want to ask the artist, are you saying that under the statute and FKF constitution, the president is eligible for 3 terms? Is that what you're saying?
As for from the FIFA statutes,
Forget about
there are
I've asked you about, you said the former president was eligible for 3 terms, he only did 2. That's what you said.
yes.
Could you please read the regulation of the term of president under the statute?
Schedule provides that the chairperson shall hold office for a term not exceeding 4 years, but is eligible for re-election for 1 more term. And then any other official shall hold office for a term not exceeding 4 years, but is eligible for re-election for 1 more term.
So it's 2 terms of 4 years. Correct?
Yes.
Has he served 2 terms of 4 years?
Yes, it does.
So what are you trying to tell us? You're misleading us.
No. What does it
That's
say?
what the law says, not what you are. You are aware of High Court petition number E437 of 2021, aren't you?
Yes.
Where the court pronounced itself and said the statute overrides the FKF constitution and the FIFA statute. You are aware of that? So that is the law. Not what you're telling us. It's not misleading. So he has served 2 terms. Now back to you. Having served 2 terms, how did you qualify to be eligible? Because in the event of a vacancy in the office of the president, he as the vice will step into that office and act in that office. How can he act when he had already completed 2 of his terms?
Okay, can I take that first? Because I think what I'm saying and what guides the upcoming elections is the FKF constitution as well as the electoral code that was passed at the General Assembly. And that is what is guiding this particular
You're saying
election.
the Sports Act does not apply.
No, it does apply.
So apply it.
It does apply because it does apply. And what you're saying is, I think what you're talking about here is in the unlikely event that something happens to the presidency, will the vice take over? Because that now will be assumed to become that term.
That's what it is.
And I think that's the interpretation here that we need to get clear. I think there's a good question about what does the FKF constitution say about that? And I think
Maybe you can hear from our legal counsel, can advise us on this.
Thank you, Chair. I was just looking at the sports registrar regulations, and they provide that an organization shall hold election in accordance with the rules provided in its constitution. So we looked at the Constitution, 37F, as you had spoken about. And then we also looked at the code, electoral code, which also allows a candidate to buy, that's the electoral code. Let me just find the specific provision. Yeah, the FKF election guidelines and regulations, that's at candidate eligibility criteria, president and vice president. Paragraph C provides that a candidate must have played an active role in football, either as a player, member, or an official of FKF in 2 of the last 5 years as per the FIFA statutes. Now that's the eligibility criteria of any person buying. So as per the law, because the sports registrar regulations mandates the elections to be done as per the FKF constitution. We got the constitution today, maybe we will come through it, but as a first reading of it provides that no one is barred from seeking election in any other elected position. So long as you do your 2 terms in one position, you cannot buy in the same position.
And that's what I was saying. This election is guided by the FKF constitution as well as that electoral code. And just as you mentioned, under Article 37F, the candidates who presented themselves, we do not have anyone who is outside that bracket. 2 terms for Mwendwa, and he has gone for another position. So it's within the constitution.
I think we are well guided. Members?
Chair, I think we are running for vice president, and that is a different position from the president. I think we should not be dwelling on this matter.
Cheers.
Yes,
We just had
Mr.
the ministry here, and we went through this. That's not the interpretation we got from the ministry. They were very clear that he is not qualified. The minister sat exactly where you sat. I was here. And I'm talking as a lawyer. And the minister posited this question. The Kenyan constitution has term limit for president. So if a president comes back to run as deputy president, will that be allowed? Under our constitution, it will not be allowed. So all these interpretations we are trying to spin around are wrong. The question is, the person must have the qualification of running for president. And a running mate does not have, who has served 2 terms, does not have that qualification. It is as simple as that. Let's not pretend. Let's interpret the law for what it is. It speaks for itself. You've done 2 terms. The statute takes precedence over your constitution. It says it is 2 terms or 4 years. He's done his 2 terms. He can run for any other office, but not deputy, not vice president. He can run for treasurer. He can run for any other post. But he cannot run for an office that in certain circumstances he would have sent to the office where he had served before, for which he had exhausted his term. The law does not work like that.
Chair,
Mheshimiwa CNN.
Deputy President is a different role to President. That's a different thing. Totally, it's a different position. You cannot say Nick Mwendwa will be the president of the FKF. The FKF president, maybe if they get elected, will be Doris, but not Nick Mwendwa. Those are 2 different positions.
Chair, I hear CNN and I also listen to our friends as they struggle to explain. But what we are doing is, anytime you have the vice president, or yes, the vice president, it is with anticipation that that person qualifies to be the president. And that when you are electing the vice president, you have in mind that that person can be a president, can be the president. Do you have a mechanism of saying, now that in case the president resigns, for one reason, do you have mechanisms of saying, then we will have also the deputy president preside? If the law does not provide, then you are putting an organization in a dead end. It is not clear. I don't know. We have no problem with the person who is being mentioned here. We are talking about the principle of law. That in the event then, if the president resigns, what is the remedy that comes? Because it should, the anticipated spirit of the law is that that particular action you take must cure any mischief or any lacuna that might rise. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a consumer of law. I've been advised in executive offices, and I've been told by councils that any step taken within the law must be able to cure itself in absence of what we call the principle. So that is what we are asking as a committee, and whether does FKF rules recognizes, and whether it is in viva that it is provided, what is it that is provided? When the registrar says, do it in accordance with viva, this is where the lacuna is. How do you treat that? Thank you,
Members.
So back to what I've been asked
Yes,
from the letters.
yes.
All right.
And you have to be very brief, and there are a few issues which were raised by Mheshimiwa Mwendwa about the two lists you are to provide this committee.
Yeah. So on that question, we'll provide all the documents of the clubs that are eligible to vote and the attendant delegates for each club.
Do you have them now?
We don't have them now.
Before the end of the day?
Yes.
You give to,
Yes.
to our secretary.
Yes, we'll provide it before end of day. I think the next question that was raised is whether a president can run without running mate. The law as it is and the court does not envision that. So whether you are running for the president or the chair of the county, you must have a running mate, because the position of a vice chair and the position of a vice president is enshrined in the constitution. So there must be, and they are not elected directly. It is the president who chooses a running mate, and the absence of a running mate means that then that position will not be filled in there. So to answer your question, all the presidential candidates must run with running mates. Yes. Yeah. I was correct even in saying that it is not for us to interpret. The two gentlemen, the bishop who is a consumer of the law and Honorable Mwendwa, who is a lawyer, were clear that there is no clarity, and as a board, we cannot defend anyone. We operate within the law. Where there is no clarity, there are instruments, legal instruments that will direct us.
Go back to your presentation.
Yes, so the next question was on conflict of interest, which I responded when I was talking about mitigation of bribery. So there's a lot of conflict of interest when the person who is presenting the voter registrar is also a possible contestant, either at the national level or at the county level. But how do we mitigate this? We publish and invite all the voices, including the dissenting voices, and they bring in their petitions, which are adjudicated up to the level of an appeals court, which is paralegal, and makes decisions just like a court of law would. So whether real or perceived, we have a way of dealing with that. And I think the perception will always be there, and we've invited all the candidates to understand that we have a robust, rigorous process that deals with almost everything on the basis of evidence that is adduced by different parties. The last was a request to submit the entire list of clubs and delegates and all the cleared candidates, if I go to Mwendwa right here. So 3 key things. So list of clubs and delegates, which is 2 in 1, and list of all the cleared candidates. We will submit that, but you will allow us to submit the list minus the list of clubs and delegates for Garissa County, because we have an order not to publish that. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Go ahead with the 2 questions. Remaining 2 questions. And you have to be very brief.
And I'll break it down into 3 aspects: technical development. I've touched on
Just be because we have the hard copies with us.
Alright, so there's training of coaches, the starting of youth leagues in the counties. We are already doing it in 6 counties. We'll be rolling it out in the next few months across all the other counties. And then establishment of a technical center where we intend to build some fields, and a technical expertise center that's out in Machakos. In terms of club development, we are busy engaged with FIFA and CAF on club capacity building. One of them is standardization and professionalization of clubs through what we call the club licensing, which sets standards on basic standards on how a club should run. You need to have pillars like finances, legal, infrastructure, as well as sporting. Just the other day we had a workshop on how clubs can commercialize, and then we have engagements with the broadcasters, Azam, and we have a workshop on the 14th of November just to see how clubs can learn how to use broadcast to generate revenues. National teams, we are busy, and we have to thank the ministry for supporting us with our 8th grade football. Just the other day, the under-17 women's team came from the World Cup, the Dominican Republic, came out with a high, having won their last game. Now, if you need to improve your football standards, you need to start from the grassroots. So the under-17 women team is active. In December, we have the boys team participating in a tournament in Tanzania. The under-20 have just come back from Tanzania, and for the first time ever, they qualified for the Africa Cup of Nations under-20, which we held in South Africa in February of next year. Now, those are some of the steps that we are taking to ensure that in the years to come, the standards of our football will be on a whole new level. Now, measures to identify and nurture the youth talent. This is from the grassroots. We have active leagues under 13, under 15, as well as under 17. And I've already mentioned we've rolled out in 6 counties, including Nakuru, Nairobi, Mombasa, Turkana, Kakamega, and Kisumu. We have, in those counties, we have regional centers which we are now using to identify the best players for the 8th grade teams. This past weekend we were in Mombasa, in one of the regional centers, to kickstart the process of picking out the best players to represent us in the tournament to be played in Tanzania in December. We have tournaments and through our partners, and one of the tournaments that FKF has been running since 2017, the Safaricom Chapadimba, which has become the greatest feeder to our national youth teams. Out of that tournament, which ended in April this year, we'll have a team going to Spain for 2 weeks camp. Now from there, our national youth coaches will be picking some of the best players to put them in the 8th grade teams, the under-17s for both boys and girls, as well as the under-20. Now just to mention, the team that just came from Dominican Republic had no less than 10 players who featured in Chapadimba in the last edition. Then of course, participating in our youth tournaments across the region. We were in Malawi in March with the under-20 team. We were in Tanzania in October. We were runners-up in that tournament. And those are some of the steps the Federation is taking to ensure that our football grows from the most junior level all the way to the national level. I think I've touched on the 2 aspects on how to improve the football standards. However, I need to mention that for us to scale even higher levels, infrastructure will be key. And that, as I mentioned earlier, the Federation cannot reach alone. We need to partner, especially with government. And we're happy that because we'll be hosting CHAN in February next year, there's a lot that is being done to improve our stadia, that is Nyayo, Kasarani, as well as private ones, Mekulinzi, and the police circle. That will be very key because to develop the youth, to improve our football standards, you need good facilities, you need good services. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Bonasio. We are presenting
Because it's on infrastructure which is collective, and it can not only be in the docket of the Federation. We have to work as partners to get that up and running. Now, in terms of improving our football, what is it exactly that we are doing? There's a capacity building, there's national team preparations, and of course, there's a technical aspect. Now, one of the things the Federation has done very well over the years, in the last 8 years, is improving the knowledge of coaches through coaching courses which are run by CAF as well as FIFA. We have levels for that. We have the most basic level, which is the CAF D. Once someone attains that, you move to CAF C, and then the CAF B, and then to the CAF A. That is in terms of coaching courses. Now, the Federation intends, through the support of FIFA, in what is called the FIFA Forward Program, to set up a technical center, and this will be in Machakos, where there's land that has been allocated, about 20 acres.
Sure. Yes, I want to appreciate that he's giving us detailed control. Where is he reading from? We would have loved to have also, because this one seems to be very huge.
Oh, no. Sorry, I think what I'm saying is that...
Are we reading the whole copy?
No, not the whole document.
Yes, so that it doesn't appear like a problem.
Okay. No, it is in the files, right at the end, there's a document that says response by the Football Kenya Federation. That's how it looks like. Right at the end. That is the one. Yes. Thank you. Yes. So may I continue? Yeah, so I was talking about a technical development center that the Federation intends to put in place within the next cycle through a FIFA program called Forward. And there are 3 aspects to that technical center. It can be basic, it can be standard, or it can be state-of-the-art. What FIFA does within a cycle is that it allocates funds.
I think you go just direct to the issues of election.
Okay, now. All right. Because of time? All right. So let me just touch on that. In August, there was an SGM, and in that SGM, the General Assembly approved an electoral board, who 4 of the members are here today, and also approved an electoral code that will be used to handle the upcoming elections. Now, the process is already on, and in another few days, we will be having the county elections. This is on the 9th of November. We have 48, in our dispensation, we've got 48 counties because Nairobi is split in 2. So other than those 2, we have the other 46, that makes 48. And I think, Madam Chair, if you allow me, because we're talking about elections, allow me to hand over to the board chair, Hansel Owila, who can now take us through the process. Hansel?
Thank you, our CEO. And thank you, honorable members, through the chair. Let me say that I will take you through the electoral process by looking at the document from page 4. Let me just refer you to page 4 of a document whose title is Kenya Electoral Board. Begins with introduction and basically gives a preamble of how we came into the office, how many we are. So I will leave the details that you see on page 3 to because it basically speaks to the membership of the board. We are 5, there are 2 members who are on standby. There are issues of eligibility that we indicated there, the last paragraph of page 3. But I want to begin with a progress report, just to give you an overview of what we've done, where we are, and what is coming up next. So if you may, just move with me to page 4 of that document. It's the last document, beginning
Which document are you talking about?
so the last attachment that begins with electoral board report. It's a yellow cover, we call it. Second last. Second last.
Yeah, I'll see.
Yes, begins with FKF electoral board report. So this is the report that will have been much of my presentation. And talks about the introduction, the eligibility of the candidates, the progress, the issues that we've noted, then the final list of presidential candidates, and then our commitment. So, in brief, let me start with the progress. In brief, we came into office and we were unveiled on the 23rd of September 2024. And this is after we had been notified of our appointment with this board. So we took a few weeks to just prepare, socialize with all the materials that we needed to socialize with, get to understand what we were getting ourselves into, after which we accepted to be unveiled and to undertake the role of running this election. Now, we set out 24 key milestones according to the electoral board that immediately, according to the electoral court, the electoral court is clear that immediately an electoral board is set, then they set the roadmap to an election. And what we did as a board, we came up with a timeline and a roadmap of 21 milestones that we needed to undertake, culminating in the 21st, which is the last election at the national level, which gives us the NEC and the president of FKF. Now, for all these milestones, together with my board and the support that we've had from the secretariat that we teamed up with, we have managed to finish 15. By the time we were coming here, we were done with training of the returning officers. So briefly, let me just take you through the milestones and what we've managed to do up to this point. So the first milestone was essentially the board being unveiled. And that happened on the 23rd of September. The second thing that we did, which we were heavily involved in, was to publish the notice of a general election, which we did on the FKF Electoral Board website. So we notified the general public and specifically stakeholders of our assumption of office. We gave them the roadmap to the election and we published all the dates and everything that they needed to do. Then the third thing that we did, and this was after consultations with the FKF Secretariat and many stakeholders within the different branches, we came up with a list of eligible clerks and delegates. Now, this list was not generated by us. And therefore, what we did, we published this list on the 30th of September. And we gave different stakeholders time to interact with this list and give us feedback. That is why we gave them time for disputes on the eligible clerks and delegates. So that was the fourth key milestone in our calendar of events. So between the 3rd of October and 5th of October, we had petitions from different stakeholders, different members of FKF, interrogate that list and submit petitions. We listened to these disputes, made rulings based on evidence, robust evidence that we had from different parties that were involved in any dispute that was raised. And after the determination of all this, we also opened the window for anyone who was not satisfied to appeal. Now, FKF has an independent appeals board that handles all the disputes beyond the jurisdiction of spaces like the electoral board. So the appeals committee dealt with a number of issues and we gave them enough time. So between 7th and 9th of October, we gave the appeals board and the appeals committee enough time to listen to all the appeals that were made, guys who disagreed with the submissions or the rulings that we made on the petitions, as far as delegates and eligible clerks are concerned. Now, we dealt with all this, the appeals board dealt with all this, and immediately after that, we published. So that takes us to the 6th milestone. So we published the list of eligible clerks after all the disputes were resolved. And then the next thing that we went for after the publication of the eligible clerks was to call for submission of nomination papers. So we invited all interested parties who had socialized the Constitution, the electoral code, and they thought they meet the qualifications to serve in different positions to submit their papers. And what we did is, it was submission of the papers after which we were to verify those papers. So on 11th of October, candidates, both at the national and the presidential, submitted, on 11th, it was 11th and 12th, it was candidates at the county level. So all the 48 counties, football has 48 counties because Nairobi is divided into east and west. So 11th and 12th, they submitted. And at the point of submission, what we were doing is that we were just receiving. Verification happened later. Then the 8th milestone now took us to the NEC aspirants and the presidential aspirants. We gave them just 1 day, which was enough for them to submit all their papers, which they did. Then after the submission, both at the county and the national level, we went to the 9th milestone, which took us between 15 and 17 to just go through all the applications and verify whether they met all the eligibility aspects that were required. Now we did that, and after that we published. So the verification period for both candidates ended on 19th, and the 11th milestone, which was on 21st of October, we published the list of all candidates who were found to have been eligible, both at the county and at the national level. After that, of course, there were disputes here and there, so we had a time period for these disputes between 24th of October and 26th, in which case they raised a number of disputes. There are people who are contesting the eligibilities of others. We dealt with all that and responded to all of them. Even after our response, of course, there are people who are not satisfied. So our milestone number 13 was to refer them to the appeals board, and most of them went. There are still cases that are going to be determined this afternoon by the appeals committee because of the back and forth in terms of submit more documents, which our legal team is handling. So we are very happy that the appeals process ended up with, I think, 3 cases that are still alive, and we hope there'll be a resolution by the end of day today. So what we did is that we left out the cases that are still at the appeals board, and we published. So our 14th milestone, we published the list of county and national candidates that had no disputes. So we did that on 2nd of November. And after we were done with that, at least some pressure was relieved off us because the candidates now realized it was time to go and look for votes. What we did is we moved to the next milestone, which we accomplished yesterday, the 15th milestone. It was a training of returning and electoral officials. So all of us up to around 10 p.m. yesterday were involved in this process of getting all the electoral materials and taking all the recruited officers through the entire process, equipping them, having pseudo for simulations of what an electoral booth looks like and the process looks like. And that is where we are. So the next couple of things that we will be doing, of course, we have the elections at the county level on 9th. So we are making preparations for the elections on 9th. And one of the key things we are doing on 9th of November. Yes. It is the presidential one on the 7th of December. Yeah. So what we are doing, because we've dispatched all the electoral officials back to the counties where they're going to hold the elections, now we are concentrating on the candidates. So we are inviting the candidates for an engagement meeting. We are doing this tomorrow. We intended to do it today, but because of this process, we are pushing it to tomorrow. We take them through the ballot boxes, the entire electoral process, what they need to look out for, how they need to socialize their supporters, interact with the polling stations, and whoever is going to vote, if they have command of the voters, help the voters understand what they need to do at the polling station, which position has which color, because we have different color codes, which ballot box is for which candidate, and all those kind of things that will make the whole process of voting efficient and effective. So that is where we are. Now the FKF elections is probably a lot more serious at the county level. And as the board, we sort of stopped at some point and gave ourselves a pat in the back, because the many issues that are normally problematic at the county level, issues of eligibility of clubs, the delegates, we managed to sort. And we can confidently say that the bulk of the demanding task is behind us. And where we are moving to is a situation where we will get elected leaders who will come to the national level. So it's a bit critical, because there's a lot of vested interests in having different people elected, because the person who is elected is a vote at the national level, and we are not relaxing. We know there's still a lot to be done, but where we have reached the 15 milestones that we've covered, we can say that we are well prepared for the 9th of November, and we are likely to have an election that we envisioned. When we were coming to the office, I think we promised that most of the candidates were telling us that they needed 3 things: free, fair, and credible election. But we promised them 5: free, fair, transparent, credible, and verifiable. We put in place a mechanism where the ballots will go, people will vote, they will come back to us. If anyone would have a reason, you have club officials saying that that is not the legitimate delegate, this is the legitimate delegate. And there are so many branches where the party officials, especially the top branch officials, branch officials, chair, vice chair, and secretary, more often than not, you find that one of them is ostracized, and therefore they will present different information. So if it is not the vice chair who is kicked out, it is the secretary who is kicked out. So the chair and the vice have their lists, secretary has his list, and then the club disputes one or either. And we were caught in very difficult situations where we had to adjudicate on such issues. And then we also, number 5, we saw infighting between and among different branch officials, which I've alluded to, and of course the infighting occasioned a lot of issues with delegates and eligibility of clubs, falsification of minutes, and a number of issues that we had to deal with were actually because of infighting between these officials. Then 6, we had interference through media statements. A lot of candidates who probably invested a lot, and we understand them. kept making a lot of statements about processes that they had the opportunity to sit down with us and understand what we were doing. But it became a lot more difficult when they made statements and made our work a lot more difficult, because then everyone was making counter statements. And anyone who was coming out to support us was again, branded as either a candidate or a sympathizer of the electoral board. Then we had massive false signatures, non-credible contacts, people who are put there as contacts, but they're not given the right brief. So when you call them, they have no idea why you're calling them. They have no idea what is going on. So all these issues, we are working as a board to ensure that whatever happens after this election, we leave a report that will make this process a lot more efficient and effective going forward. And I think without taking too much of your time on these issues, let me just say that at the end of the day, we managed to deal with all these issues, and at the national level, we ended up clearing 9 presidential candidates. One has since withdrawn from the race, and therefore we have 8 presidential candidates and their candidates who are poised to battle it out on 7th of April 2024. I think I will rest my case up to there and take it back to the chair.
Thank you. Maybe you can pass my microphone to Mheshimiwa. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, the presenter. I never got your name very well. Do you normally publish the name of delegates and also the name of voters? I presume the delegates are voters. And also, how do you mitigate the likelihood of bribery? Looking at the number of delegates, there are only 47. That's a small number that can be easily be influenced or be bribed to vote in the interest or in favor of the person who is bragging. So as a federation, how do you mitigate that? Because that is an easy way to get someone who doesn't fit to be the president, to assume presidency simply by using money to coerce or to influence the 47 delegates. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mheshimiwa Mwendwa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I have some 3 questions. Let me start with the qualification of the candidates. This committee is aware that one of the candidates has already served as considered as president of the Federation for 2 terms, and there's a term limit. And so has the deputy. So I have these 2 questions for the election panel. Are you called electoral board or panel? Board. Electoral board. Number 1, if you have served as president and completed your term, and you are now applying to be a vice president, who in the event of a vacancy in the presidency will step into that office, are you still qualified? Would you still be qualified to run for that office? Because the qualification is, you must be, to be a vice, you must have the qualifications of a president. If you've served out your term, then you don't have the qualification to be a president. So we want to hear from you why of the 8 or of the 9, there's somebody who has already served for 2 terms and is still listed as a candidate for vice president, without necessarily meeting the qualifications. That's number 1. Number 2, if you've applied to run for president, and at the expiry of the nomination period, your running mate is found not to be qualified, do you proceed to run as a candidate without a running mate, or you are disqualified? Because there's a time period within which you must apply, be approved, like everybody else, and then the list is published. So if by the deadline you have a running mate who is not qualified to be a running mate, can you still run, or are you also automatically disqualified? In other words, can you run without a running mate? So we need an answer on that. Two, I want you to explain to us very clearly how you've dealt with perceived and real issues of conflict of interest. You've explained that the list of delegates is prepared from the grassroots, teams who have participated in the meeting, teams who have been existing. In other words, historical data, which is managed by the Football Federation, is it? In other words, a person serving for the last 5 years has an advantage in controlling that process, real or perceived, because he has direct access, other than somebody who is from outside. So I want you to explain to us how you have addressed that issue, whether you see a potential conflict of interest when people who have been serving and who have been interacting with the clubs and who have been preparing the list and changing them and approving them and even participating in the forgery of those things you are describing, minutes and everything, fixtures and all that, has a conflict of interest. We need to hear that. And finally, under the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act and our standing orders, we would like to receive from you the entire list of the clubs, officials, everybody at every stage. We want that commitment. The ones that are going to go for elections on 9th of December, if you could give us that entire list today, and the ones that will be subsequently elected well before the elections, this committee would like to get the entire list under Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act as well as our standing orders. Thank you.
Yes. So, I think there are some that have nothing to do with electoral vote because they are FKF and we are not FKF. So let me take the ones that touch on the electoral vote directly. So the issue of how we mitigate bribery and influence broadly falls between both of us and FKF. Now, football is a very small circle, and even this election is really small. So there are 48 delegates who are elected from the county level, 48 football counties. And then after the election, we'll publish another list of all the 92 delegates who vote at the presidential level. So these 92 are drawn from clubs, and these 48 will be elected. And there is always that reality of people being compromised, of people being bribed at two levels. At the first level is the level of voting for a chair, the county level, who comes to vote at the national level. And I think we have enough mitigating measures, though limited as the electoral vote. Now, part of what happens is that bribery is given to influence who becomes a delegate in a club. That bribery takes place to influence which club is eligible and which one is not. And that is what falls within our mandate. That we need to ensure that the club that is eligible to participate in an election and send a delegate is the right club, with or without bribes. So this is how we deal with it. And it touches on the issue of conflict of interest. So the lists that we are given by the federation, because FKF is a member federation. So these people who are contesting this election are all members. Now, at one point there is a member who is an official, who is running the affairs of football in Migori. But there are all other members who are, by virtue of being club officials, are also members of FKF. Now, to mitigate bribery at this level and conflict of interest, because we are getting this list of clubs and delegates from the FKF, And FKF, the national office, is getting all these from the branches. What we do is we publish what they give us. And we call on all the stakeholders and the clubs to look at that list and raise any issues that they have. Now, once that list is published, we are then independent of any interested party, whether they're in office or not. Because what we do is that we use the evidence that any petitioner produces. So if there is any bribery or if there is any conflict of interest, and Migori Youth Football Club, and I played for Migori Youth when I was a young man growing up in Migori, if the official that is put there is not a member of Migori Youth, by publishing, Migori Youth will submit, and we have electoral guidelines, will submit minutes of their discussions and a letter giving us the true position of the eligibility of the person who is put there. Now, when they submit, we act on that. We don't. We pick that, we look at what we publish, and we ask for more evidence from FKF. And now we pick the file. We say that now this is what has been raised. We want to understand how did Migori Youth file their returns over the years? Who have been the officials? And if the officials are the ones who signed the minutes and written a letter and raised issues with the delegate who has been put there, who probably is there through influence that is beyond the right influence, we deal with that, we call them, and the moment we make a decision, we publish. And if they don't agree with that decision, there is another level of the appeals court. So that is how we deal with issues of bribery at the voting level. Now, when it comes at the county level, the national level, now you see these are elected officials, and there are only 92. So, whether real or perceived, they are probably susceptible to anyone who wants to woo them. And I think that now is beyond us. The methods that people use to campaign can either be legal or illegal, but we don't have the mandate to stop people from whatever method they use. Anything that is reported to us, we also just escalate to the relevant authorities. Where we've seen forgery, like in Homa Bay, where Mwendwa Karori comes from, there are lots of forgeries, and I think the DCI is involved. And that is the farthest that we can go, that when there's a criminal culpability, we just leave them with the evidence that we have, and then they do their bit. Number two, from Mwendwa Karori, was the question of qualification. If someone has served 2 terms, do they have the opportunity to continue serving? And if, let me respond to that. Now, the FKF constitution, and probably I'll refer you to the specific articles. So the FKF constitution, I will not go into details because I'll tell you that this is in a court of law, so I'm a communicator. No lawyers talk of sub judice. As communicators, we talk of freedom of expression. So I will express myself to the level where I will not contravene the law. Now, so the first thing that we note is Article 37 of the Constitution of FKF is very clear that the term limits of a NEC candidate are 2. Then a NEC candidate who wishes to go for more than 2 terms can seek another position. So that is expressly clear in Article 37F. So that's the first thing. So you can serve and move to another position. Whatever position you can move to, I think the Constitution is not clear. It has not restricted with position. Then move with me to Article 43, if I'm not so wrong. So Article 43 of the same Constitution, it talks about candidates for the office of the President. So Article 43, clause number 1 says that the President shall be elected by the General Assembly for a period of 4 years. His mandate shall begin after the end of the General Assembly which has elected him. Clause 2 says a President stays in office until a new President is elected. Clause 3 says a President may be re-elected for a further 2 terms of office in accordance with Article 37A. I am not a legal expert, but when you look at this and the FIFA statutes, the president can actually run for how many terms? 4. Now, the elephant in the room is that we live in Kenya, where there is a Sports Act, and the Sports Act pronounces itself on the issues of term limits. And I think I will stop there in the interest of this matter being in court. And as a board, what we know is, according to the FIFA statutes, the FKF elections and the electoral code of conduct that was passed by the delegates, we do not have the wherewithal, the legal wherewithal, to pronounce ourselves on an eligibility outside the FIFA statutes and the FKF constitution.